Hi, Edis. Thank you for being here today with us at VoxFem Xicanindia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's quite an honor to have you here. I'm particularly tickled because in our day job, you're my colleague and you're my partner at Xica Media. You're the founder and chief, what is it? Chingona and chief. And yeah, I feel that our work as Xica Media as an activist, an artist and digital storyteller informs your work as a musician. And today's interview is going to deal with your musical project, Yakatsol, and wanted to share some of your music and activism and artivism with the world today. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about Xica Media and how it's related to your music.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Edis. Thank you so much, Laura, for the opportunity to share this. As being involved in Xica Media and being working with communities that are in crisis to produce media, multimedia, not just news, not just information, but also storytelling and things that are important to us as people. I get very used to being behind the scenes and not putting my face out there. Everything that we do with Xica Media has informed my work as an artist. I've had permission from the universe to work with a lot of amazing people, a lot of very resilient, very powerful people, a lot of people that are also suffering, but not hopeless and doing what they can. So, walking that path at the same time as, me as a Chicana is walking a path to decolonize and walking the spiritual road and returning to my roots as an Indigenous woman from Texas, paired together, has opened this new door, I guess, to the music. We do creative media, but this is kind of us venturing out as artists and also exploring what it sounds like to be Chicano, what it sounds like to be Mexican American, what it sounds like to be Indigenous from Texas, and in all these gray areas with culture that we've been left with, right, after hundreds of years of colonization. So this is the Yakatsol project is part of Xica Media. When we do work with Xica Media, I usually pull from our musical database, which includes anything from cumbia to what we call bruja pop to indigenous instrumentation, more, they call it pre-Hispanic, but it's like autochthonous Mexican instrumentation. So in that space, in that borderland space that we are in as a people, this project is allowing us to experiment with those sounds.
And Yakatsol is a musical project that you do with your family, correct?
Yeah. So the word Yakatsol is an homage to the name of what they call the Edwards Plateau, to the forest that they call the Edwards Plateau, Central Texas. And in the documents, although they say that many people shared that territory because it was a holy land, that forest was an enchanted forest that was part of a journey to the medicine gardens in the south of Texas. So many people from many nations would come and bring their generations, sons with their fathers and their grandfathers would come to hunt the deer in that forest and then go south. And the name that the Europeans recorded was Yakatsol or Dacate. And what it means, it's like a nahuatl variant, and it means the place with the faces or the noses in the stone. It's like this ancient forest, and for XYZ reason, in the hills that are in that place, there are faces, our ancestors are there, there are abuelos. It's also a place that is considered a birthplace of humanity. We came out of the water.
I did a installation for 10,000 Years of Yanaguana. There was that story of the four springs, which is San Pedro, what is it, Comal, Guadalupe, and Barton Springs that kind of form a half moon, and on the night of a full moon or a super moon, that they burst the springs and humans and critters and creatures came out. And I think that's one of my favorite creation stories. But it's also like where we get our water, so it makes a lot of sense. That's the Edwards Aquifer.
And donde nace agua, nace la gente. It's a birthplace of humanity. And so it's so funny because like you get into these politics of identity and they're like, oh, you're Chicano, you can't be indigenous. And it's like, well, Chicano's political for me, but I'm indigenous. Those are the faces of my abuelos in the stone. Those are I was blessed to have grown up playing in the ancient forests of my grandfathers.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know. Well,
and that's part of colonization and white supremacy, right? Being in charge of the school systems.
Yes.
Erasing, first of all, dispossessing Chicanos of their land, because many of us are not immigrants. Many of us have always been here. And number two, dispossessing us of our language, culture, and history. So the clip that I wanted to see is called Abre la tierra, and in it we see images of land resistance and protests, and I believe it's like a pipeline that was happening in West Texas. And so this was about a year or two after Standing Rock.
Sure. That video specifically was my attempt at weaving popular music in that case, which is like a cumbia type of mix, with visual resistance and actual social justice resistance, defense of the land, indigeneity, Chicano. I wanted to see it all. So in the Xica Media style, I put a call out to the public like, hey, I have a vision. Are there any videos of movements or resistance that we could use to put together with this video? And we'll share links and we'll put it out there. And sure enough, Greg Harmon from Deceleration News contacted me. He had gone out to West Texas with several different community members from San Antonio, Indigenous, Mexican American, Chicano, and also the Calpuli that Laura Rios works with, that she runs. And they went out to protest and chain themselves, and he shared that footage. Laura and I actually sang the song behind it, which is lyrics dealing with connecting and reconnecting with the land. But it went viral, and I thought it was so cool because where you see people like us from San Antonio resisting in Texas. Nice. Because in Texas, we're particularly oppressed in ways that go as far as the criminalization of protests, and as far as like the colonization of our minds.
Well, let's look at the video and we can talk a little bit more about it.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Give me just 1 second.
Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor. Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor. Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor. Entre tus manos están las semillas, ponlas en la tierra con mucho amor.
Morning, Greg. So tell me what you're doing.
Abre la tierra con tu cuchillo, en la madre tierra está la sanación.
So what you see in the film or in this video is historic footage of a resistance in West Texas, which is it's very rare that you're going to catch that mixture of elements together. The concept of indigeneity in Texas is not completely buried. They've never been able to kill us outright, but certainly it has been hidden as much as possible and underneath many layers of things. Because keep in mind that Texas is also one of the places that made it illegal to identify as indigenous. So many of the people there have called themselves Mexican or Mexican American or Chicanos for generations. And that erasure has also erased the connection with the land, has also caused for a lot of people to not want to protest, you know? It's a very colonized place, a very oppressive place, the state of Texas. So it's very unique, the opportunity to get this little window into that moment of that protest at that time, because one of the things you see is a grandmother chaining herself to a machine, not on a reservation, on land in West Texas, you know. And I think that is so critical, because even though they couldn't, they tried to erase us and erase that connection to our land, like despite the ownership, the people are still there. You know, and I wanted that to serve as an example for my inner city, my urban Indians. What's happening in the planet right now, it's we got to get together and we got to do what we need to protect the earth and protect each other and protect our families. And that's what this video shows through a fusion of cumbia music, which gives it this element of action and movement, but not anger and villainy. No. There's definitely like this sense of taking the earth with care. And that's one part of what Yakatsol does. It's fusing these, returning back to our values as indigenous peoples, returning back to those life ways and those ancient relationships that colonization can never wipe out, and just putting it back into a popular medium in the internet and taking it to the next generation.
I also love the imagery of the danza, because we don't get to see that a lot.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of elements there. Thank you for bringing that up. As a Chicana, also reclaiming my life ways and the ways that I communicate, like with nature and my own sense of what is life, and not spirituality, but just the way of life, right? Prayer is a critical part of who we are, and in our prayers, always having these fluid conversations, whether it be with Creator, with our nature around us. And we as Chicanos, a lot of us, or a group of us, have been returning to those life ways. Some of us has gotten back to praying with our peyote medicine. That's our ancestral birthright medicine. It grows on the holy land that is Texas. As someone that has been allowed to step back in front of that fireplace, one of the things they teach you is you don't record prayer. One of the things they teach you don't take a camera to ceremony. So the fact that we're seeing a prayer is, I think, really important. And so you have to ask yourself, why? What is it that you're seeing? And that prayer is going on at the same time that there's elders training themselves. So that prayer is coming from a very real place. I mean, that you don't only hear in the original video, you don't only hear the drum beat. I mean, people's heartbeats are racing, you know? And bringing that moment, not only the fact that it was captured, but bringing that moment with respect and carefully placing it into this video was really important for me. Not because it was breaking the rules, but because it's important for us to remember that as Mexican Americans, Chicano peoples, like part of what they took was our sense of prayer and our spirituality, our spiritual path. And in order to resist, we're gonna have to get that back. and it's not going to be an easy dance.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that video is a metaphor for that. And I thank my sisters, Laura, Madeleine, Luisana, and I think Amelia was out there too, holding it down in the middle of all of that. You know, as part of a community that is discredited from being American, from being Mexican, from being Indigenous. They're there praying. Women.
Absolutely. Women are going to save us right now. I strongly believe.
As a community, yeah, we're a part of all of this. You know, sometimes people say it's like, oh, you know, you're not Indigenous enough, or you're not this or that. That information is in our blood. It's encoded in our blood. It's a matter of reconnecting to ourselves, our ancestors, and to nature. And it's funny because as Chicano peoples, with detribalized peoples, let me rephrase that, as detribalized peoples, like I said earlier, thousands of years of relationship with Earth are not going to be disrupted by 500 years of colonization. And something happens when you open that channel again. And it's a beautiful experience. And I strongly encourage everyone who is looking for their identity, the Mexican-American diaspora, the Pan-Mexican diaspora, Latinx, whatever you want to call yourselves. If you're on that journey, you start inside and with nature.
Right, and acknowledging the original peoples of the land that you're living in and learning about them. First, learn about yourself, learn about them, and see where, you know, they intersect.
That's right.
That's beautiful. So speaking of another beautiful music video, I want to see my favorite one, which is Canto a la Tierra. And I was hoping you can talk a little bit about it. I think it's one of my favorite because it has you and your babies in it, and it's just one of the sweetest things I've ever seen. So do you want to talk a little bit, introduce it, talk, you know, just quickly, we'll look at it and we can talk about it after.
Okay, so Canto a la Tierra is a video I did with my children. It's in Spanish, which is actually my first Spanish, or my second Spanish song to come out, but it evokes this idea of unity, family, happiness, community, earth, reconnecting with earth. I filmed it as a recent transplant to Tonalá, Jalisco. It was filmed on a sacred mountain, and there's layers of meaning behind the attire that we used, the location that we used.
All right, so let's roll.
Estamos enlazados por un hilo, por la cuerda de la vida y del amor, por la piel y el corazón todos unidos, juntos al mismo tronco de un tambor, como un huevo de tamaño de la tierra, para sonar con el gran eco de su entraña, a vibrar para danzar y para cantar, nuestro rezo del ayer, hoy y mañana, alientados por el viento y el aroma del copal y el incienso de la salvia, atemados por el sol y el temazcal, y andando de la mano de una sabia, de una ancestral tradición de nuestro ser, compartiendo lo mejor de cada uno, con la idea de mejorar y trascender, buscando nuestro interior en cada ayuno, y girando en espiral todos trenzados, transportando el colón y la nación, con las 7 direcciones conectadas en el trabajo de alegría y sanación, como hermanas, como amigas, como un todo, festejando la existencia de hoy aquí, por la siembra de maíz y demás granos, por las frutas y las flores y por ti.
I love that music video because first of all, it's a Chicana transplant in Mexico, in a sacred site. You know, creating a music video with her children, which is also radical because in a lot of work we do as artists, people don't want to see our children or know that you're parenting, but it's you're in this place that's the Cerro de la Reina, Sihualpili. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and tell us what we saw. What was the mask and all that stuff?
Yes. Yes. So the mountain is a sacred mountain. In Nahuatl, its name is Xictepet, which is the mountain of the belly button. And in Spanish here locally now they call it El Cerro de la Reina, because when the Spanish arrived, there was a queen. It was a monarchy. And that's something they don't tell you, apparently neither as Mexicans or as, as Mexican Americans, that indigenous peoples, like there were matriarchies. And there was a woman here and she lived on this mountain, and it was at that time I had just arrived not too long before, and it was such an honor to know where I was and where I was putting my feet. And so of course, like my kids and I filmed this video with a mask that was given to my son of what they call the Tastuan, which is a mispronunciation of the Nahuatl word Tlatuani, which means king. And that, the corrida, I think it's called the corrido de Tastuanes, is like the running of the kings, is when it's a reliving of the battle that happened on this very mountain. The Spanish made it all across Mexico, and the queen knew the capacity of death that came with these people. So she ordered the youth and the elders to a big, what do you call it? To Huentitan, which is, oh gosh, the name escapes
The
me.
barrancas, or like
The
that.
barranca, into these caves, and they hid for hundreds of years. But she asked for the women to stay behind and receive the Spanish so that they would not be taken by force. And so she invites, they have this big feast and this big dance on the Cerro, but the local kings that were underneath her, not everybody was agreed with her. So they, without telling her, attacked during the feast. And they wore their traditional masks, which were in honor of a Hecat, which is the wind, because there's a relationship with wind in this land. So they wore their masks and they freaked the Spanish out. And Tonalá, which is Nahuatl for the land where the sun is born, which makes it an incredibly important, powerful place, it was not conquered. And because of that, Guadalajara got founded not too far from here. And but they were trying to establish Guadalajara on the most powerful point on the western part of Mexico, central Mexico, which was this mountain, and they couldn't do it. And that mask that my son is wearing is part of the still ongoing commemoration of that battle. Wow. And so the fact that he is a Tejanito Chicano wearing that mask, having the honor to wear it, also wearing the manta, the traditional cotton that grows here that people have been wearing for a millennia. I wanted to show that as Mexican American peoples, as Chicano peoples, we can still connect. We can move through time, and we can still bring our children into this. Not everything was taken. There are still things that are alive. And so I showed my son in that mask, and then I show my daughter in a little cowgirl hat, wearing, you know, a little manta shirt, jeans. And I wanted to show that those two things can coincide, and they're coinciding. Also, the critical element, or one critical component of that video was that I felt I wanted to show this joy, this feminine joy, this embracing of a moment where you're on the green grass with your kids. And that was important to me to show, showing me happy, showing me well, showing me healthy, showing me reconnected to my culture, showing me dancing on top of the mountain of the Queen was a very direct arrow I wanted to shoot at the system.
Oh man, talk about resistance. And talk about joy activism too, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I think it's also important too that in that resistance, it's not, I have had years of anger. I have had years of bitterness. I started Xica Media documenting people dying in front of me,
Hmm.
you know, at a Superfund site in South Texas, the birthplace of Monsanto. So as a producer, I'm coming from a place of a lot of pain. As a Chicana, I'm coming from a place of a lot of pain for many reasons as well. So showing resistance with joy is like a creation resistance. It gets us past the unhealthiness of having to process all that matter and showing that we can still dance and we
And be
can
resilient.
be resilient. That's correct. And we can get back what was taken. It is possible.
I think also what's important for us, for our community, for our relatives, Chicanos and Mexican Americans to know is that Mexico City Tenochtitlan was not the only major place of indigeneity and pyramids. Tonalá was, and well, they had to settle in Guadalajara, but that whole area was as large as Tenochtitlan. And the Toltecs had, you know, so like that whole story, that whole part of Mexico and that whole history, and the fact that there was a queen, or, you know, they wouldn't call them queens at the time, but um, I just feel like it's so important that we bring back that history to the forefront of like Chicanas and resistance, and remind them like we have been in resistance for over 500 years. You know, Black and brown women have been leading grassroots movements for a very long time. So I'm really glad that you're able to tell a lot of these stories through art, and because they're, you know, the pills are more digestible, right?
Thanks.
When it's
And just,
beautiful and creative.
yeah, but there's another side note here.
Mhm.
They, Siwalpili, which is like a princess or queen, Siwalpili Zapotzintli was her name.
Mhm.
She, because the kings betrayed her, she was seen as a traitor by her people, not
Mhm.
by the people she saved, but by the people that didn't agree with her acceptance of the Spanish. She was seen as a traitor. She was seen as a traitor by the Spanish because they were sorely defeated at
Mhm.
that feast. So here we have an example of a woman who is written out of history and remembered as a traitor. For that reason, part of the body of work that Yakatsol does is also based now on this Cerro, because I feel there the Cerro is speaking not just to me, but to who we are as a people. Part of my journey in reconnecting and talking to the land again, but also as a trusted digital warrior for my people, is to connect those two dots. And therefore the land can speak to my community. And that's my work.
Okay.
Well, La Cultura Nos Cura is the first song I did as Yakatsol. I didn't really know what else to say. I just felt like creator was telling me to sing or make people dance and make people wake up at the same time. So I came up with this little cumbia that all it says is La Cultura Nos Cura. And then there is an intro. Instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, I say Se Ome Ye Nahu. And that's just a little bit of language there to reconnect folks back to the Nahuatl, which in Texas, variants of Nahuatl were spoken. So I thought it was important to mix that into La Cultura Nos Cura. That video is very political. Opening scene is children, Black and brown children, beating piñata of Trump. And I did this video when he first ran for office. I had no idea he was going to win, but I knew that if it was going to win, it was going to be bad. And at the time, a friend of mine who she's an activist, Erika Gonzalez, out of Austin, Texas. Well, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Texas, but I met her in Austin. She's co-founder of Poder for environmental justice. She lives in Oakland and is a teacher at the Roses and Concrete School that Tupac's mom started. And she sent this video of the kids beating the piñata, and I thought it was just so perfect. Again, Xica Media style, I told people, hey, I want to put out this song called La Cultura Nos Cura. Any women out there want to dance? I got some dance moves, and copy them, video them, send them to me. And I had several submissions from across the United States of different women on the border, just different places sending themselves dancing. And then we also have the participation of Terry Von Trudel, the daughter of John Trudel. She's in her kitchen making tortillas and dancing to the music. So it was an awesome collaboration, a lot of positive femininity at a time when there's femicides, at a time when we're under occupation, land and body. You see women, brown women dancing, even in Juarez, you know, where that's known as a very dangerous place. There's women dancing, and we're still there. So I wanted to capture that in this video, and that's what we're going to see here.
Okay, let's play the clip.
Ce ome ye now. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. Ce ome ye now. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. La cultura nos cura. Ce ome ye now. La cultura nos cura. 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 La cultura nos cura.
I love that. I think my favorite part was the kids hitting that piñata trump. We really need to see that right now.
Yeah.
Here in the United States, because those, 4 years later, and which I guess is going to lead us to our final segment. I know that you're going to do a special performance and a song for us for the COVID people who are mourning and people who are sick right now.
One of the things I wanted to do today was share a song with you all.
Okay, and I think we'll go out after that. We'll say goodbye. And thank you, Edis, for being so committed to the work that you do for our community. I think a lot of people don't realize how chingona you are because you are behind the scenes. And so I'm glad that we were able to talk about your work and your music. And thank you for the song that you're about to offer to us right now.
Well, thank you so much. I want to just quickly talk about the song. So as a Chicana stepping into ceremony now over 10 years ago, one of the first things that I felt was like, whoa, I've been here before. I felt that DNA woke up. But I in the process of the Native American church ceremony, you sing songs all night with the fire. And I connected with that. And through singing, I have reconnected with my ancestors and done a lot of healing, and also come to this place where I understand that everything that I do to this work, to this body, affects 7 generations backwards and 7 generations forward. So with a lot of respect, I want to share a song, not that I wrote, but a song that is sung by other Chicanos that I heard in ceremony, a variation of it, which is singing a song to Mother Earth and to the divine feminine. So with respect, I'm singing this song outside of the fire, but I'm doing it in a good way in honor of everybody and everything that we're going through, everything that you and your families are going through, everything that we as a people are going through, that we as a human people are going through, that our earth and our animal and plant relations are going through. So in a good way like that, I'm gonna sing it.
Delicioso.
Está bonita, madrecita, está bonita, madrecita, está bonita, madrecita, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Está bonita, madrecita, está bonita, madrecita, está bonita, madrecita, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, quetzalí, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, quetzalí, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Está bonita mi abuelita, está bonita mi abuelita, está bonita mi abuelita, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Está bonita mi abuelita, está bonita mi abuelita, está bonita mi abuelita, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, quetzalí, hey Ana, hey Neyo. Cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, tonantzin, cuadlicue, quetzalí, hey Ana, hey Neyo.
Thank you. Bye.
Juanite colotzin, tlini